think of today. So, you're very used to my dad jokes, but because it's Mother's Day, I have a mom's joke. It's actually a very dad-mom joke. So there was this woman who came to services, and she was an elderly woman, and she sat in the front row, and this very caring and wonderful usher came up to her and said, "Ma'am, you might not want to sit in the front row. You might want to sit a little bit back because, quite honestly, this minister, he's a little boring. And you might want to just walk out halfway through the service." And the woman just looks at him and says, "Do you know who I am?" He says, "No, I'm the minister's mother." And the usher said, "Do you know who I am?" And she said, "No." And he said, "Great," as he ran away. A little mom joke, you know. But as I stand here before you, and many of you actually know my mom, you've seen her here, I love feeling how proud and how happy my mom is to see what I'm doing. She's a great mom. She's a great grandma. She's actually a heck of a great mother-in-law. Sometimes I'm like, really? And so, love you, Mom. She's watching right now, because I told her to. But, I'm just, especially because of today, just sitting with what my mom has meant. And you also know that I try to be very open and authentic. And so in the showing you how much I love my mom and how grateful I am for my mom, I realize that we've also experienced challenges, right? Like in our relationship. And it hasn't always been easy, and sometimes it's been pretty difficult. And I love my mom. And I'm very grateful for what my mom has provided me. And I realize that the relationship between mother and child is like any other relationship in that it can be complicated, right? And it can bring up challenges. It's relationship, and it's intimate relationships in many ways. And so a lot of things can come up. So I realize that there are some of you, even in this room, who may be a little uncomfortable with Mother's Day or with that relationship. And I just want to acknowledge that. There are some of you that may be grieving today for not having the physical presence of your mother, or you may be a grieving mother without the physical presence of your children. There are some of you who may not have a relationship with your mother, whether that's their decision or yours. There are some of you who were raised by mothers who weren't ready to raise children. And so I get all of that, and I just want to let you know that I feel that. And I also recognize that there is beauty in us being able to acknowledge not only mothers, but then we have a choice to acknowledge the mother figures who are the ones who not only have, but will continue to share with us love, share with us comfort, compassion, and really support us. And I believe that these are qualities that we are always looking for in any relationship, and they show up beautifully in these mother figures, and they're really being mirrored by those mother figures because those are qualities of the divine, right? Like God as the comforter, God as love, God as compassion. And really, they're actually mirroring that which is already within us. And so what it's really doing is just sort of like sparking an awakeness to the love, the compassion, to the faith, to the understanding that is within us. So whatever your relationship is with your mother figure, whatever your relationship is with Mother's Day, I really believe that as we acknowledge those qualities of God as expressed by different people in our lives, we can really receive not only blessings, but there are some really wonderful lessons in there for us. And so I was thinking a lot about some of the lessons that my own mom shared with me. And then I started to think, well, actually, what are some of the lessons that other people have received from their mothers, advice that other people in our community have received from our mothers. And so I reached out to a few of them to just get some stories from them and get some of the advice that they really felt encompass what their mothers taught them. And so I'm going to share them with you today. And I know that many of us have heard about the gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, right? Yes? Some of us have heard of some of the other gospels that didn't make it to the Bible, the gospel of Philip, the gospel of Thomas, the gospel of Mary and Judas, right? Yes. Well, today you're going to hear about the gospel of mom. And so these are the different advices that many of the people in our community receive from their mother. And I really invite you to see whether it connects to something that you receive from your mother figure or just something that is calling you to recognize a greater truth about yourself. And so are you ready for these pearls of wisdom from mom? I should, since my mom is watching, say, these are all from my mom also. All of them, no. Well, the first one, and you know what's funny is that how many of you have read something somewhere, heard something somewhere, but then when mom says it, you listen, right? This is a little bit of that because some of these advices we can find in different ways, but when mom says it, you listen. So in Galatians chapter 1, verse 10, it asks the question, am I now seeking human approval or God's approval? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still pleasing people, I would not be a servant of Christ. See, I think that one of the advices that many in our community then shared with me and that I got from my mom is to be authentically ourselves. And this is an opportunity for us to really know that it's time to stop people-pleasing. To stop people-pleasing, to get a real sense of the truth of who we are, our divine nature, and allow ourselves to express that divine nature in the beautiful and unique ways that we are meant to express it, not because it was defined by somebody else, like who we should be, what we should be. My mom told me to be authentically me, but she also told me, but I do want you to become an economist, right? Yeah, well, almost. But to really take on our own true definition of who we are, based not on other people, but on what is within us. And to uncover what is within us, to recognize that authentic self is the divine in expression. And I love that Dale, our music director, shared that his mom, Shirley, said to him once in a letter, "You have to be happy with yourself. You are the only one you can't get away from." How many of us have tried to get away from ourselves? Because it's scary to be our authentic selves, because it's scary to show up in the way that we believe ourselves to be in the midst of what other people may be looking for or wanting from us. And so many of us have hidden from ourselves, have run from ourselves into addictions, into such busyness that we can't get comfortable and alone time to really sit with ourselves and know ourselves more fully, right? And so it's time that we stop running from ourselves. It's time that we start to acknowledge our own divine truth and start living into it more fully. And as we do, to really take off the mask that we have placed on ourselves. And I'm not only talking about the mask that we place on ourselves for others, but for ourselves. Because maybe we're not fully comfortable with what we see in the mirror. But maybe it's because we're focused on the wrong thing when we look in the mirror. And we're not really looking at what is truly deep and honest and true about us. Ray, who's part of our music ministry, and his mother is actually, let's just hold her in the energy of wholeness. But Ray, he says that his mom shared with him, don't start doing something in a relationship that you're not going to continue to do. How many of you are really good cooks at the beginning of a relationship? How many of you are like, oh no, I love waking up at 6 a.m. and walking on the beach, right? And we start doing things that we think will get that other person to like us, only to realize later on, wait a minute, that's not who I am. And oh my God, now they think I have to do this for the rest of my life, right? And so how can we release ourselves from the chains of having to wear a mask? And this idea that we have to wear a mask in order for somebody to love us, in order for somebody to like us, and in order for somebody to show us unconditional love. I think that's a lot of what we talk about on Mother's Day. Like, what is unconditional love? Well, the moment that we stop looking for unconditional love outside of us is the moment that we recognize that we are already in unconditional love, because that is who our essence is. That is what our essence is, and there is no condition. I will tell you from personal experience that when we put on the masks so that we can feel that unconditional love, that's not what we feel. What we feel is fear. Because how many of you have been there where in order to receive love, you act a certain way, but you're really scared that somebody's gonna find out that's not who you are. And so you're not able to fully receive the love because you're so nervous about keeping appearances up, keeping the masks on. And so today is the day that we can truly acknowledge our truth, truly acknowledge our divinity, and be unapologetically us. What does that feel like? What does that look like for you? To be unapologetically you, unapologetically divine, unapologetically love, unapologetic, without apologies, whole. It begins with us, and we won't fully get it until we allow us to be the ones to live into it and to give it to ourselves. Another one of the advices that many of us, how many, by the way, remember hearing that from your mothers? Be you. Be you, be yourself, right? Another thing that some people in our community heard from their mothers and is now in the gospel according to mom, express love to one another. See, when we realize that our authentic self is love, then the next step is to be able to express that love. And in John chapter 13, verse 34, it says, I give you a new commandment, that you love one another just as I have loved you. You also should love one another. Chris Arroyo shared that her mother, Jean, actually, I'm not allowed to tell you all the things that Chris Arroyo told me her mother told her, because apparently some of our mothers are very funny and dirty-minded. But she shared that there was only one four-letter word that she was not allowed to say at her house. Can you guess what that is? Hate. Because it was about recognizing the power of love. And it was about recognizing that we don't have to like somebody in order to feel love. We don't have to like somebody in order to honor and respect the sacred worth that each individual has. And she actually said, Jean told Chris, those who are the most difficult to love are the ones who need our love the most. She shared that one of the most powerful testimonies of that was when her mother invited an exchange teacher from Japan to live with them as a family, knowing that there was some resentment towards the Japanese because a Japanese soldier had killed her 19-year-old brother during World War II. And she knew that there was a little bit of resentment, that there was a little bit of anger, and she extended that because, as Chris said, Jean understood that if she didn't want war, anger, pain, or hurt to happen again, she had to forgive, and she had to bring the peace to her soul and pour that peace into the world. And so it's about knowing we are peace, knowing we are love, and knowing how to express it, even when it doesn't. How many of you heard from your mom? I get it, he's being an idiot, and you still have to be nice to him. Go play with that kid across the street, right? But Michelle Cuartas, our director of operations, she shared that her mother taught her how to express the love by being of service. She said that her mother found great pleasure in helping her family back home, supporting her church, and volunteering in any other capacity where she was needed. See, love grows in the world, it is magnified, and it heals. right? Because the extension of love by Chris Arroyo's mom, Jean, to that teacher healed Chris Arroyo's mom, Jean. The extension of love in service to humanity that Michelle's mom provided, it healed the world around her. And so are we willing to be agents of healing, to allow the healing to not be under a bushel, but to be expressed more fully? The next advice is to not limit ourselves. How many of you have felt limited in the past? Yeah. Been there, done that, doing a little bit of it every so often, right? But Luke chapter 1, verse 37 says, "For nothing will be impossible with God." Take that in, because it's just words, it's just something you're hearing, and is it something that you're trusting? For nothing will be impossible with God. And mothers, in different ways, really invite us. I'm thinking now all of a sudden of like a little bird, like where the mom bird starts to push the little baby out of the nest so that it can grow and it can fly, right? And so there's different ways in which our mothers have shared with us this opportunity to not let ourselves feel limited. Amy Baez, her mom, Maria, said that the biggest advice my mom ever gave me was to not rush to get married and have kids. She also told me to travel instead. Her greater point, though, being was that I expand my options and not limit them. Whatever that looks like for us, right? Like, it looks different for all of us, but are we living under limitations, whether they were set by us or whether we allow them to be set on us? Or are we living in expansion? Are we doing the things, are we doing the practices, are we being in the world in a way that expands us? Because that, to me, is part of thriving in life, right? To recognize that we are more than our experiences, that we are more than our circumstances, and that there is something that is pure potentiality within us, and that we can lift ourselves up through the limitations into a place of expansion. Myrtle Fillmore, who we call the mother of unity, wrote a poem that I believe really acknowledges that which we want to focus on, that which we want to be intentional about. And as I speak this poem, I really invite you to think about the ways in which that which we are not or do not believe, like evil or sin or death, can feel limiting, can feel constricting. But when we step into truth, and I speak words of good and abundance and of eternal life, I wish that you'd have this, you will have this poem soon, but I wish you could have it so that when you read it, you could feel the constriction and the expansion. But see if you can feel it now. As I read to you, it's called My Faith, and she wrote it in 1897. I do not believe in evil. I believe in good. I do not believe in sin. I believe in truth. I do not believe in want. I believe in abundance. I do not believe in death. I believe in life. I do not believe in ignorance. I believe in intelligence. There are no discords in my being. Being is at peace. My faith, my understanding, and love are becoming one. What God hath joined together, let not man put asunder. And coincidentally, faith, understanding, and love is what we would call feminine qualities of God, feminine qualities of our own divinity. And so now we're living authentically. We are expressing that authentic love that we are and being in service to the world. And we are living into the potential that is in every moment. So what's there to do but to enjoy life? to really enjoy life. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 12 says, I know that there is nothing better for them than to be happy and enjoy themselves as long as they live. How many of you are enjoying life? How many of you are enjoying all of life? Beautiful. How many of you realize that there are areas within your own life where you are losing some of the joy, where it feels like it's taking away some of the joy, right? I've been there also. Okay, I was going to say like I'm there now, but I'm not because I'm present now. But I can think of some of the ways in which I'm not. But as we also hold Eddie Dominguez and his mother Sandra in our prayers, Eddie, many of you know, has been a longtime member and a pillar of this community, as his mom has been, and his mom is in the process of making her transition. And so we just hold them in a prayer and in a vision of a peaceful and loving transition, and in the knowing of eternal life and oneness. And we honor her by sharing that Eddie, one of the things that he learned from her was to enjoy life, which is so beautiful to share today, Eddie. He says she wasn't a person of means and certainly didn't come from money, but my mother always made the best of whatever situation she was in. He also said that he thinks my mom's greatest lessons to me have been on the power of love and the importance of living the life you want while you can. Why are we waiting to thrive? Why are we waiting to live in pure joy? Why are we waiting to really acknowledge the power and the presence of God in every experience of our lives? And for me, I realize that it's not about the circumstances, right? Like, it's not about the situation that we're in. It's about how we choose to think about it. The unity principle, the third unity principle, yes, it is, thoughts create after their kind. But more than that, it is we create our experiences of a situation. It doesn't say that it'll change the situation. It doesn't say that it'll change the facts or the things that we have to go through, but it says that we have the ability to change our experience of it, and in everything be able to not only find God, but to find some joy. And I was sitting with this after the first service, because I'm like, I know that there are hard things going on, and if I don't focus on the hard things or the difficulties while I'm in them, but focus on the fact that I can do this, that we can get through this, that there is love being birthed, right? Like, as we focus on that, there is joy in that. And what a radical thing to be able to say that even in the difficulties and even in the things that challenge us, we can find joy. But it's true. It's ultimate reality when we shift our focus to remember that God is the source of our good, everywhere present, and that life is an expression of that source. I recently found this quote from one of a New Thought leaders from the 1800s, and I just love the ending of it, because it was all about, like, God is in this too, God is in this experience too, and then she wrote, and I demand to see the good in this. It wasn't I hope to see it. It wasn't like I think there's hope in here. It says, I demand to see the good in this. I demand to feel the joy of recognizing my oneness with God and Spirit. I demand to live the life that I am meant to live, to thrive in all areas of my life. And so, those are the gems. Those are the pearls of wisdom that many of us may have experienced from our own mothers, but they were beautifully expressed in the lives of the mothers of some of our congregants. Maya Angelou, who was a Unity student also, found this quote of hers, and it said, "My mother raised me and then freed me." The way that I sit with that is that, see, it doesn't... Whatever way you were raised by that mother figure, you are free. You choose what to do with it. You are free to follow the advice. You are free to know better. You are free to be better. Whatever it is, you are free in this very moment to follow the advice of your own divine nature and of the God within. And I really invite us, as we are celebrating Mother's Day and mother figures and this love and all of these advices that have passed down generation to generation to generation, to choose to be authentic, to choose to express the love that we are here to express, to choose to not limit ourselves, and to choose to live life to the fullest in joy. And that, to me, if we follow the gospel according to Mom, is how we will experience the joy of life and the joy of God. So let's live it. Namaste, everyone. Thank you so much for visiting our YouTube channel. We post new videos every week to keep you positive, present, and inspired to your divinity. Please click on the subscribe button below and also that notification bell. Remember to share this with your friends and your family, those that you know will be inspired just like you have been. And always remember that we love you, that we bless you, that we behold the Christ in you, and we see you doing great things. Thanks and take care.